On the last night of January 2018, a total lunar eclipse painted the skies above Tehran in deep crimson, and 8 million Iranians looked upward at a celestial event so rare that NASA called it a super blue blood moon, the first of its kind in 35 years. But while the city gazed at the heavens, fewer than 24 men and women moved through the darkness below, carrying torches that could burn through steel at over 3,600 degrees, heading toward a crumbling warehouse in the southern suburbs that the Islamic Republic believed no foreign intelligence service on Earth knew existed. Inside sat 32 massive safes containing the most dangerous secret in the Middle East, the complete blueprint for building 5 nuclear weapons, warhead designs, production timelines, and the names of every scientist who had worked on a program Iran denied for 2 decades. What happened over the next 6 hours and 29 minutes would become the largest physical theft of classified material from an enemy capital in the history of modern espionage. The agents were Israeli. The mission was codenamed Operation Stealing the Reality, and by the time Iranian security forces launched a manhunt involving 10,000 personnel across Tehran, half a ton of documents and 183 compact discs were already racing toward the Azerbaijan border, carrying proof that Iran had lied to every nation on Earth. But the most shocking revelation would come 6 years later, when former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad admitted that the very man Iran appointed to lead its counter-Mossad intelligence unit had himself been a Mossad double agent all along. This is the true story of how one night in Tehran changed the future of nuclear politics forever. If stories like this fascinate you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into the hidden side of history. The man who saw what others missed. To understand how a team of Israeli spies ended up cutting through safes in the middle of Tehran, you have to go back 2 years earlier, to January 2016, when a man named Yossi Cohen walked into the director's office at Mossad headquarters in Gilat, just north of Tel Aviv, for the first time as its new chief. Cohen was no outsider to the world of secrets. Recruited by Mossad in 1984 at 22, he had spent decades running agents across the Arab world and inside Iran. He was raised in a religious family from Jerusalem and had climbed through every level of the agency's operational hierarchy, from field case officer to senior commander, earning a reputation for a quiet intensity that masked an appetite for operations most intelligence chiefs would consider far too dangerous. Colleagues noted his meticulous nature, always dressed in a crisply ironed white shirt regardless of the hour or the crisis at hand, a man who believed that the details determined whether an operation succeeded or ended in catastrophe. When Netanyahu appointed him, the timing was deliberate. Just months earlier, the 6 major world powers had signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran, the nuclear deal that was supposed to freeze Tehran's path to the bomb for at least a decade. Most of the international community celebrated the agreement as a diplomatic triumph. Many within Israel's own security establishment believed it had neutralized the Iranian nuclear threat for the foreseeable future. Cohen disagreed. He believed Iran was not only preserving its nuclear knowledge, but actively hiding the evidence of how far it had already gone, and he ordered his staff to redouble their focus on Iran at a time when much of the world considered the matter settled. What his analysts found in those first weeks on the job would prove him right in ways no one anticipated. Within weeks of taking office, Cohen received intelligence that would change everything. Mossad analysts had detected unusual activity across Iran. Trucks were moving between universities, military laboratories, and research facilities affiliated with the Revolutionary Guard Corps, all converging on a single destination in the southern outskirts of Tehran. Someone was consolidating thousands of classified documents, research papers, computer simulations, and experimental data into one location. For years, Iran had kept its nuclear secrets scattered across dozens of sites. Now they were gathering everything into a single archive. The reason was the nuclear deal itself. Under its terms, Iran was required to provide the International Atomic Energy Agency with full access to all documentation related to its past nuclear activities. Iran had no intention of doing that. Instead, its leadership decided to collect every incriminating document and hide them all in one place where inspectors would never look. It was a gamble, and it would ultimately destroy them. The warehouse one was supposed to find. The location they chose was a nondescript warehouse in the Shohrabad industrial district of southern Tehran, a sleepy neighborhood far from any known military or government facility. The building looked like any other commercial storage unit, deliberately run down, the kind of place you would drive past 1,000 times without noticing. That was exactly the point. Only a handful of people in all of Iran knew what was inside. Among them, Reza Ardakanian, the Minister of Energy, and Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the physicist who had served for decades as the chief architect of Iran's secret nuclear weapons program. Fakhrizadeh was arguably the most important figure in Iran's military scientific establishment, a man whose name appeared in classified intelligence briefings across the Western world, but whose face remained largely unknown. He had personally overseen Project Ahmad, a systematic effort to develop nuclear warheads, test detonation mechanisms, and design delivery systems for ballistic missiles. Iran had always claimed its nuclear program was entirely peaceful. The documents inside those safes told a very different story. But Mossad did not rush. For nearly 2 years, Israeli intelligence watched and waited, monitoring trucks, intercepting coded communications between officials who referenced the archive. Then Cohen made a decision that elevated the operation from surveillance to something far more ambitious. He sent a female agent into Tehran. She was fluent in Farsi, had an engineering background, and entered the country under deep cover, wearing appropriate Islamic dress and accompanied by a male companion. Over several days, she walked casually through the Shohrabad district, noting every detail of the warehouse's security, the locks, the guard schedules, the alarm systems. What she discovered was remarkable. In their effort to keep the warehouse inconspicuous, the Iranians had made a critical decision. There was no 24-hour guard. Posting round-the-clock security would draw attention, signaling that whatever was inside was valuable. So the guards arrived in the morning and left at night. For several hours in the darkness, the most sensitive nuclear secrets in the Middle East sat behind iron doors and an alarm system, and nothing else. Planning the impossible. When the reconnaissance report reached Cohen's desk, he presented Netanyahu with a plan that most leaders would have rejected outright. Send a team of Mossad operatives into the heart of Tehran, a capital city of 80 million people, to break into the warehouse, cut open the safes, extract the documents, and smuggle 1/2 ton of stolen material out of the country before dawn. The risks were enormous. If even a single agent was captured, it would trigger an international crisis. If the alarm was tripped, they would be trapped in a hostile city with no embassy to shelter them and no friendly government to negotiate their release. Iran would parade them before cameras, and every intelligence operation Israel was running inside the country would be compromised overnight. Netanyahu asked whether the Iranians had copies. Cohen said he did not know, but that Iran was so confident in the secrecy of the location that they may not have bothered duplicating the files, fearing that digitization would create electronic vulnerabilities. If the paper originals were the only copies, then stealing them would not just expose Iran. It would erase the knowledge itself. Netanyahu approved. Then, at the World Economic Forum in Davos in January 2018, he privately told President Trump what was about to happen. Mossad spent months rehearsing. They built a full-scale replica of the warehouse at a secret location outside of Israel and ran the operation repeatedly, testing every variable, timing the safe cutting with stopwatches, studying satellite imagery of surrounding streets, memorizing traffic patterns, and identifying fallback positions in case the team was discovered. They practiced cutting through the exact type of Iranian-manufactured safes they would encounter, shaving minutes off each attempt, until the choreography was as precise as a surgical procedure. Multiple extraction routes were planned, each with contingencies for roadblocks, pursuit, and worst-case scenarios that no one wanted to think about but everyone had to prepare for. Nothing was left to chance. And on the night of January 31st, as a total lunar eclipse darkened the sky over Iran and cast the streets of Tehran in an eerie crimson shadow, they went in. 6 hours and 29 minutes. At 1 minute past midnight, the team approached the warehouse. They activated a jamming device that overrode the alarm system and breached the outer iron door. A second reinforced door waited behind it, which they cut through with their high-temperature torches. Inside, 32 enormous safes stood in rows, each nearly 3 meters tall, mounted on heavy-wheeled platforms. The team had calculated they had exactly 6 hours and 29 minutes before the morning shift arrived. They could not open all 32. Based on 2 years of intelligence, they targeted 6 safes believed to contain the most damning material, the warhead designs, production plans, and evidence of Project Ahmad's full scope. The torches burned at over 3,600 degrees, slicing through Iranian steel with a white-hot glow. One by one, the safe doors swung open. Inside, the agents found stacks of paper documents, technical drawings and presentations detailing every aspect of the weapons program. But they also found something unexpected. Alongside the paper files were 183 compact discs containing roughly 55,000 electronic files, videos of nuclear experiments, photographs of scientists at classified facilities, and progress reports mapping the entire timeline of Iran's ambitions. A Mossad officer later said he would have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single disc. They took them all. In total, approximately 50,000 pages and 183 CDs. Half a metric ton. They loaded everything onto 2 waiting trucks, and as dawn began to soften the Tehran skyline, the warehouse was empty and the trucks were moving. The manhunt. When Iranian security personnel arrived at the warehouse around 7 in the morning, the scene must have been incomprehensible. The doors had been breached, 6 safes stood open, their contents gone, and the alarm system had been bypassed without a trace. The discovery escalated rapidly through the chain of command. As many as 10,000 police, Revolutionary Guard, and intelligence personnel were deployed across Tehran and along the borders. Roadblocks went up on every highway. Border crossings were placed on high alert, but it was already too late. The extraction plan had anticipated this. Decoy vehicles had been sent in multiple directions, creating false trails that divided the search teams. The real cargo moved toward a crossing on the Azerbaijan border, and by the time the manhunt was fully underway, the documents were already outside Iranian territory. Back at Mossad headquarters, Yossi Cohen watched satellite feeds on a wall of plasma screens. When the code word came through confirming that the team had crossed the border safely with the entire archive intact, the room erupted. 2 years of planning had been executed without a single agent being captured. The Iranians said nothing publicly. For 3 months, the Islamic Republic maintained complete silence, apparently calculating that acknowledging the theft would be even more humiliating than the loss itself. That silence ended on April 30th, 2018, when Netanyahu stepped before television cameras in Tel Aviv and showed the world what Mossad had found. Iran lied big time. The press conference was theatrical by design. Netanyahu stood before shelves stacked with the actual stolen binders and discs and delivered a presentation in English aimed at the global audience. He explained that Project Ahmad had 5 core components: designing nuclear weapons, developing nuclear cores, building implosion systems, preparing underground test sites, and integrating warheads onto ballistic missiles. The program's explicit goal was producing an initial batch of 5 warheads, each with a yield of 10 kilotons. The documents included photographs of scientists at classified facilities, schematics of warhead designs, and internal presentations tracking every component's progress. His conclusion became one of the most quoted lines in modern diplomacy. "Iran lied," he said. "Big time." The reaction was swift. The Trump administration used the revelations to justify its withdrawal from the nuclear deal in May 2018. Secretary of State Pompeo confirmed that American intelligence had verified the document's authenticity. European allies who helped negotiate the deal were furious, but for Israel and the United States, the message was clear. Iran could not be trusted because it had never been honest about the scope of its ambitions. The archive did not merely embarrass Tehran. It demolished the foundational assumption of the entire negotiation, that Iran had come to the table in good faith. What the documents revealed asterisk. As nuclear experts from multiple countries spent months examining the archive, the picture that emerged was even more alarming than the press conference suggested. Iran's AMAD project, which Tehran had always claimed was discontinued in 2003, was in fact a highly organized weapons program with defined goals, timelines, and resources. The archive contained technical drawings of a nuclear implosion device, computer simulations of chain reactions run at undisclosed facilities, and procurement records for materials with no application outside weapons manufacturing. Most importantly, it revealed sites that no intelligence agency, not the CIA, not MI6, not even Mossad, had previously known about. One of the most significant discoveries was a facility in the Turquazabad neighborhood of southern Tehran, publicly presented as a carpet cleaning factory, which had secretly stored undeclared nuclear materials since 2009. When Netanyahu revealed this site at the UN General Assembly, the IAEA demanded access. Iran resisted with implausible excuses, but eventually relented. When inspectors conducted sampling at Turquazabad and another location called Varaman, they found traces of processed uranium, enriched uranium containing isotopes indicating reactor irradiation, and depleted uranium consistent with enrichment activities. The physical evidence confirmed the paper trail. Iran had not only lied about its weapons program, it had been actively concealing nuclear materials in violation of every agreement it had signed. The ghost inside the machine asterisk. But the story does not end with the documents. In many ways, the most disturbing chapter would not be written until years later. In 2024, former President Ahmadinejad made a statement that stunned even seasoned intelligence observers. He revealed that Iran had established a dedicated unit to counter Mossad operations, a task force whose sole purpose was to identify and neutralize Israeli spies on Iranian soil. And its leader, the man personally chosen to catch Mossad agents, had been exposed in 2021 as a Mossad agent himself. Ahmadinejad went further, claiming approximately 20 Iranian operatives had been working as double agents for years, and that some had directly participated in the archive theft. If even a fraction of this is accurate, then Mossad's penetration was not a single spectacular operation, but a systemic compromise reaching into the very heart of Iran's counterintelligence apparatus. The implications are staggering. It means that when Iran moved its nuclear secrets to Shorabad, Israeli intelligence may have already known about the decision before the first safe arrived. It means the female agent conducting reconnaissance may have been guided by Iranians already working for Mossad. And it means Iran's last line of defense against foreign espionage had been compromised at the highest level. For a regime that prizes secrecy above almost everything else, this was not merely an intelligence failure. It was an existential humiliation. The scientist who knew everything asterisk. There is one more thread that connects the stolen archive to an event that would shake the Middle East 2 years later. Among the names appearing most frequently in the documents was Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. The archive proved he was not merely an administrator but the chief scientist, strategic planner, an operational leader of a program that had come far closer to producing deployable nuclear weapons than anyone realized. For years, Western intelligence agencies had known his name but little else. The stolen files changed that. They revealed the full scope of his work, his methods, his network of scientists and suppliers, and his central role in every phase of the weapons program from conception to near completion. He became, in the eyes of Israeli intelligence, the single most dangerous man in the Iranian nuclear establishment, because he was the one person who carried enough knowledge in his head to rebuild the entire program from scratch if Tehran ever decided to restart. In November 2020, Fakhrizadeh was driving on a highway east of Tehran when his car was ambushed. The killing was carried out using a remote-controlled machine gun mounted in a parked pickup truck, operated by satellite from hundreds of miles away, a weapon of extraordinary precision that fired 13 rounds in less than a minute before self-destructing to eliminate forensic evidence. Iran blamed Israel. Israel neither confirmed nor denied. But the connection was impossible to ignore. The stolen documents had painted a target on the man who spent his career hiding in the shadows, and the shadows had caught up with him. A wound that never closed. In August 2021, on one of his final days in office, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani did something no one in the Iranian government had done before. He publicly acknowledged the operation. Speaking to officials in a meeting covered by the state news agency, he confirmed that Israeli agents had stolen the archive and that the documents had been used to convince Trump to withdraw from the deal. It was a remarkable admission, essentially conceding that a foreign intelligence agency had penetrated the country's most classified facility, stolen its most sensitive secrets, and used them to dismantle a signature diplomatic achievement. Today, the effects of that single night continue to ripple across the geopolitical landscape. The nuclear deal collapsed. The documents that were supposed to remain hidden are now studied by agencies and policymakers worldwide. The man who built the weapons program is dead. The man who was supposed to catch the spies turned out to be one of them. And Iran, which spent 2 decades insisting it never pursued nuclear weapons, now faces a world that has seen the blueprints. Operation Stealing the Reality earned the Israel Security Prize, the highest honor for intelligence work. The agents who carried it out have never been identified. The warehouse in Shorabad still stands, its safes open, its secrets gone. And somewhere in a secure facility outside Tel Aviv, 100,000 documents sit in climate-controlled storage, a half-ton reminder that in the world of intelligence, the most dangerous weapon is not a warhead. It is the truth, stolen from the people who tried hardest to hide it.